Hi, I'm John Stevenson. I'd like to welcome you to the senior seminar at South Florida Bible College and Theological Seminary. The senior project within the senior seminar is the culmination of the course of studies in the program. The idea is that we take all of the classes that you've already taken, integrate the entire field of study to bring together a resulting paper that you will write. Now, the hardest step sometimes is just choosing a topic. You want to ask, what topic are you passionate about? Because you're going to be spending the better part of a semester in studying that topic. So it really ought to be your hot spot, the thing that you enjoy, or else you're going to hate it. Answer a question, solve a problem. For biblical study students, it ought to focus on a single verse, and it can do that for the ministry students and even business and counseling students as well. You can do that. That's probably the easiest paper that you can write. You're not trying to prove something, even though you might have a conclusion in mind. It's not about proving something, but it is about giving evidences toward a conclusion. Don't use words like prove in your paper, and in fact, avoid overstatement. I'll repeat that again. In your topic, you want it to be publishable, but not necessarily marketable. Now, we're going to publish the best of the papers. We actually have a South Florida Bible College and Theological Seminary journal that is published every year. It comes out in May. So students have the possibility of having their papers published in that journal. In the topical areas, you can, as I said, you can choose a specific exegetical problem. Some of the other possible topics are in the area, and you're not going to do a paper on evangelism, but maybe some aspect of evangelism, or some aspect of apologetics, or of church growth, or of preaching, or of counseling, or of spiritual formation. Your topic must be much narrower than any of those areas. So you can start with those areas, but then, for example, it might be on one particular aspect of apologetics, an apologetical passage, or an apologetical treatment of a certain idea. One aspect of church growth, maybe church growth in a particular geographical location, in one sort of situation, but that could be transferable to others. Developing a Christian philosophy of work can be, now that's still sort of broad. But for the business programs, we do allow a little bit more broadness involved in that. So here are the steps involved. First of all, you want to submit a working title for approval. That way, we've already seen how narrow your focus is going to be, and invariably, I usually end up coming and saying, "That's good, but it's still too broad. It needs to be a very narrow focus. We're going for the laser beam, not the shotgun. Not when you shoot a shotgun, the shells sort of spread out, the little BBs. We're looking for something very specific." Give a detailed outline of your paper. Now, it doesn't have to be 20 points. In fact, it shouldn't be 20 points. Your paper might have only about 5 or 6 major points. After all, it's only going to be a 12-page paper. But you can have subpoints and subpoints of the subpoints. And really, the more detailed your outline is, the easier it's going to be to write your paper. Submit a working bibliography. Now that might change as you might say, I don't need to use that book, but I found out about these 2 other books. So it's just a working document. It will change as time goes on. I'm going to have you submit a quote sheet, maybe 1 or 2 pages of the quotes that you might end up using, the quotable quotes that you might end up using in your paper. Shouldn't be more than that, because you're not going to use that many more quotes. After all, it's only 12-page paper, so you're not going to have a whole page of quotes likely. But there might be some times where there was an especially noteworthy quote that you want to use. And so submit those. Submit a book report from one of the resources that you're using. Nothing elaborate, 1 page. What are the big things that you found in this book that were good and that you might end up using for your paper? So what all these aspects, the bibliography, the outline, the quote sheet, even the book report, are helping you write the paper before you actually start writing the paper. That's the idea. These are to help you out. Finally, you're going to submit the paper for approval, and then you're going to be done. But the paper that you submit has to be perfect. It's not something that don't submit a work in progress. I want the completed paper. It's been proofread. No mistakes are allowed. You're not married to the outline of the proposal. As you work through it, you might actually change your outline a bit, and that's okay. Avoid a hortatory style. You're not preaching. I don't want your preaching voice. Don't say praise the Lord. Make me say praise the Lord by writing such a good paper. Avoid overstatement. That's the British model of understatement that you ought to follow. So don't overstate your case. Don't say this is the most important, because it might not be. Don't say this is the greatest thing. It might not be. And so don't assume that your reader assumes that it is. This is not a matter of being unique or having original thought. And I'm not saying you're going to plagiarize. You're not. But you are going to build and synthesize upon what others have done before you. And so you're going to read a variety of sources, integrate that, sort of digest it, put it in your own words, your own ideas, your own evaluation and treatment of those ideas, your own application. But the end result might not be something that's completely unique. In other words, it's like nobody ever had this thought before. No, but your expression will be unique to you. And so your paper will be typed. It will be double-spaced using 12-point Times New Roman font. Everybody's on the same page with regard to font. That's sort of the academic standard. You'll use single spacing if you have either charts or, in the case of block quotations, but the rest of it's double-spaced. Make sure that you use Word if you're, first of all, you're submitting it in Word. Yes, we're in a Bill Gates world, and you have to use Word for that. Your paper is going to be 12 pages in length. That's double-spaced. There will be no spelling or grammatical errors permitted, and the sources should be of a scholarly nature, can include books, journal articles, internet sources. How can you tell if it's a scholarly article? Look at the back of the book. Is there a reference page that cites previous sources? If it doesn't, it probably isn't of an academic nature. Probably. That's just a good sort of rule of thumb. Your paper will be submitted electronically, and that's so that the work can be published in the South Florida Bible College and Theological Seminary Journal. We come out with a journal every May, so we need your paper by April. You'll have the following format options: either Turabian, APA, that's especially if you're a counseling student, MLA, or you can use a particular series of citations that I'm going to show you now. These sort of in-text citations, and this is especially if you have problems using footnoting, and remember, if you're doing footnoting, you have to let Word do it. You can't just manually insert the footnotes. That will, if you try to insert a paragraph or a word or something, that throws everything off, and that's unacceptable. But here's another option you can use, and we actually encourage for this paper. I encourage the in-text citations. It's just easier to publish them when we go to put it in the journal. And so here's an example. Notice we're writing in the middle of the paper in a series of case studies. Chen and Koo, that's a book that I'm citing. They found, and here's the quote. It begins with a quotation mark. The majority of the students were willing to take risks in committing the offenses, even though most of them realized that plagiarism was not a proper behavior. End of quote. And then I notice the date at which this was published and the page number. And then when you turn to my reference page at the end of my paper, among the other references, they will be in alphabetical order. Chen Teresa and Koo, Nanquang Teresa. So these two individuals wrote. They wrote in 2008. Here's the title of their article, EFL Students, Factors Contributing to Online Plagiarism. And that was in a bigger journal entitled Student Plagiarism in an Online World, Problems and Solutions. There were a number of articles there, and then it gives the rest of the publication data. So that's how you do an in-text citation. If you have problems with footnoting, this is a good alternative. And it is permitted, and for the journal, even encouraged.